IntelliSense is another way that Visual Studio increases productivity. IntelliSense provides categorized and logical code elements to select from in a drop-down list. It completes the code as you type and auto-generates the rest of the code for you. This not only reduces the amount of time you spend typing code, but it's also a great way to avoid typos and mistakes. Especially with larger teams, it also provides a way to readily reference each other's methods, properties, and events by automatically looking up the class interface. In Visual Studio 2005, we introduced the concept of filtered IntelliSense. So instead of seeing an entire list of all the different options that you have, the filter works to narrow down your options to the ones that are most frequently used. There are several ways to trigger IntelliSense. One way to trigger it is to press Ctrl-J. Ctrl-J will list the members that are available for you to choose from. Another option is to select Alt-right arrow. This will complete the word that you're working with. So if I start typing system, for example, and select the period, I can see all the elements, objects, and properties that belong to the system namespace. Let's go to the top of the screen where we have our using constructs. Using constructs allow us to avoid having to use the fully qualified name. So instead of having to type system.link to work with a specific link class, I can avoid having to type the system.link prefix every time I'm using an object in the links library. Let's add another one. Let's type in using. As you can see, another IntelliSense feature is to manage the scope. Before, as you saw when I typed on the bottom, I had a list of all the different elements that I could choose from, including objects, methods, and properties from various namespaces. Visual Studio is intelligent enough to know that I'm working with top-level declarations and only provides me with options that are in the scope of where I am. So in this case, I can see using that's available, as well as namespaces or partial scope setting. Let's now select System. And here, again, IntelliSense is intelligent enough to understand that I'm working with the system.namespace and will only provide me with objects that belong to that namespace. Let's go ahead and delete this. IntelliSense is not only available in the code editor while you're writing the code, but it's also available in the immediate window when you're debugging the code. This was introduced back in Visual Studio 2005, and developers have found this feature most invaluable. Let's experiment. Select the form.design. Pop up the toolbox window. From all Windows forms, select Button and drag that onto your design surface. Double-click on the button to navigate to the button click event. Let's type something in the button click event that we can then set a breakpoint on to debug. Use the shortcuts that we've just provided you to pop up IntelliSense to help you write the code. Select Button, select the period, and start typing FO. We're going to change the for color. Set this equal to be color dot, and you can see again, IntelliSense is smart enough to know that I'm working with color and only provides me with options that relate to color. Let's select a specific color and type in a semicolon to complete the expression. Now, press F9 to set a breakpoint. When we run the code will stop in debug mode and we can experiment with the immediate window. Select F5 to run your application. Click on the button. As you can see, we drop right into the breakpoint. This is indicated by the red and yellow arrow as well as the yellow highlight indicating what point we've stopped at. Right now, this piece of code has not yet executed. You'll also notice in the lower right-hand screen that you have an immediate window available to you. This window allows you to write expressions to query the data inside any of the variables or objects that are currently in scope. Previous versions of Visual Studio supported this almost like a version of Notepad. It didn't have the code editing enhancements such as IntelliSense back then. Now, if I want to query the member variables, let's start typing in button, and I select period, I can now immediately see what my options are for button. This is quite useful and developers have applauded the addition of this new feature. By using IntelliSense to create an expression button.forColor and prefixing that with a question mark, I can go ahead and query the existing value. By looking in my immediate window, I can see what the current color is by looking at the settings. Then, once I'm happy with my settings, I can choose to execute that piece of code by selecting F10. And now, if I go ahead and hit the up arrow, it will repeat the last expression that I used. If I select Enter, I can now see that the new color is 255 to 2245, which is equivalent to beige. Notice the Auto window also pops up. The Auto window also allows me to manage my objects that are currently in scope. In this case, it's the button object. I can drill directly into the button object and look at other attributes that I have available, such as the Auto Size mode. I can expand the base and scroll down further into the elements of the button and manage the elements right within my Autos window. If I like, I can actually change these options directly from my Autos window. And likewise, as with the immediate window, IntelliSense is also available for me here. If I wanted to add a specific watch, for example, meaning an expression that I want to watch as the value changes, if I type button 1 and then select the period, again, IntelliSense pops up for me, remembering what setting I last used, in this case, 4-color. I can select that and press Enter. Not only can I add a watch for a particular object, but it also treats this as an object in its entirety, allowing me to drill down into the elements of that particular component. Again, as I saw in my immediate window, in text, I can now see the same data in the watch window in a much more visual format, and not only see the value, but I can also see the type. And any feature that allows me to visualize that component, I can bring up the text visualizer to actually see more details around that component. This is quite useful when I'm working with data elements, such as a data set. By using this data visualizer, I can look at all the different columns and rows that are available in my data set. Now let's work with Visual Basic and see some of the code editor enhancements we have with Visual Basic. Select Stop and choose File Exit.